Hey everybody, this is Zach Ditmars for Fish Talk Magazine. Thanks for tuning in for another edition of Live with Lenny. Just a few announcements before we get started. For the last year or so, we've had Live with Lenny on the second Thursday of every month. So moving forward, possibly next month, but definitely in January, we'll be doing the first Thursday of the month at 5 p.m. So just a small change, just a 1 week shift. Will still being a monthly program. So look forward to that. And for this evening, I just wanted to let you all know, tuning in, that we will be giving away one of Wayne Young's, a Fish Talk contributing writer, will be giving the random question for this evening. Wayne's book, Hook, Line, and Slinker. Wayne is a monthly contributor. You may have read a lot of his Chesapeake Bay Fishing Reef articles in Fish Talk Magazine. So he's been gracious enough to not only give us a huge Fish for a Cure donation this year, but he's also giving us another book to give away tonight. So tune in, ask your questions to Lenny, and at the end of the program, we'll be giving away one of Wayne's new books. All right, so without further ado, I'd like to bring on the angler-in-chief. Hey, Lenny, what's happening?
Hey, Zach, how are you, man?
I'm great.
Good.
So what are we talking about tonight?
Wait. I got my copy right here.
Oh, you have a copy. You already have.
I have a copy.
You can't win that. You already have.
No, this is not the one getting one. This is hand signed to me. But I'm sure that the copy that will be awarded tonight to some lucky asker of questions will be signed by Wayne himself. And it's all random. Whoever asks a question, your name goes in the hat. And feel free to pop your questions into the comments, folks, whether you're doing YouTube or Facebook. Just pop them right in there. Zach will relay them, get them up on the screen. And the topic for tonight, now, I know Zach has some experience with because we were fishing on Saturday.
Yes, thanks so much. Lenny was our team captain for Fish for a Cure. Thanks for another great day on the water. By the way, what was the results of Fish for a Cure? Well, you caught the biggest fish on the boat that day, if I recall.
Well, I got lucky. I did. That was a 28 1/4 incher, and that was actually one of the bigger fish of the darn tournament. In fact, we had trouble scratching out a couple keeper-sized fish on top of that one, and that still put us in third for the catch and release category. So, pretty happy with that result. Even happier with the fact that we ended up 7th in the fundraising captain's challenge. And thank you so much to everybody who contributed to that in any way, shape, or form, because that was about 40% higher than we've ever managed to do before. And everybody should remember, with Fish for a Cure, this money doesn't go to some amorphous fund or research or something. It goes right to the cancer patients who need it. And it really is, I think, a really good thing to do. And I really appreciate everyone chipping in on it. And man, 2022, it's going to be even better. All right, so should we get to tonight's topic?
Absolutely. So what are we talking about?
I'm going to read this verbatim because we saw this on Saturday. We saw it the week before, and I saw it again today. I was out today and with Fred and crew on a Fish for Cure trip, and we had a great time, but let's listen to this real quick. Working late fall birds. Nothing's more exciting than finding working birds in November, but catching quality-sized rockfish around birds is not as easy as it used to be. Employ these tactics to find the big ones. Well, was it easy to find big fish Saturday? It was kind of tough.
It was a little tough.
It was a little tough today. It was a little tough 2 weeks ago. And you know what? It's probably going to be tough in a couple more weeks. And, I try not to make guesses in the world of fishing. I try and only tell folks, what I know. And I'm going to say right now, this is a guess. So be forewarned. I don't know this for a fact. It's just a guess. But I really think that the schools of rockfish that we're working with, that are pushing the bait to the surface and the birds are working on, are just much smaller than they used to be. They're up and down like that. You might get a minute. You might get 2. They don't stay up for 20 minutes anymore. You don't see acres of birds anymore. You see little patches. And they move really quickly. They shift around just like lightning. They don't stick around. It's not like fishing birds used to be. And there's been a progression in this direction for several years now. 5, 8 years ago, if I saw a flock of birds through the binoculars and I ran down to them, I would hope they would be there for the next hour. They might be, they might not be. Today, I just hope they're still there by the time I get there. And sometimes they're not. So I really think we're dealing with much smaller schools of fish. So why don't you go ahead, Zach, and put up that first photograph and let's talk about it a little bit. This first one I chose because what I want you to do when it comes up is I want you to look over Zach's left shoulder and you're going to see a lure, little white paddle tail. Oh, it's a little small there. Hold on, I'll show you one. I got one right here. This is from today. I was using this today. It's just a little 5-inch white paddle tail. There it is. That little guy right there. You can see one hanging in the rod over Zach's shoulder. That's been a go-to bait for me really all season. It's just been doing fantastic. Chartreuse works, yes, absolutely. Other colors sometimes, but just that little white paddle tail has been doing the trick. This picture was taken, I think, stop me if I'm wrong, but I think 2 weeks ago, right?
That's about
Yeah, right off a poplar. And we had birds, but they were up and down. They were moving. You hope to get in a cast or two before they were gone. All right, go ahead and take me to the next pick if you would, Zach. And this one is from Saturday. And that was the 28-incher. Decent fish. Of course, long time ago now, 10, 15, 18 years ago, a 28 we would have been happy with, but it would not have been a big fish. A 32.46 would have been a big fish. A 28 would have been like, yeah, nice fish, solid. This fall, I think I've seen maybe 2 fish over 30 inches. I think someone we all know who is off the camera right now might have caught one of those fish. What was that, Zach? 32, I think. That was also down by poplar. But the reason I wanted to throw this picture up is because look at the bait hanging out of that fish's mouth. That is a 10-inch Boss BKD. I got one of them sitting around too. I got one right here. And again, it's white. White has been a spectacular color. There it is. There you got it. That's your big BKD. That's a pretty big bait. A barely keeper fish will have trouble getting this in its mouth. It might. We actually did catch some smaller fish on the bigger baits last weekend, but choose this if you really want to go for the quality. You really want the big fish. Say, 26 and up. That's what you really want. That's what you really want to find out if it's there. Wow, Zach, we have some kind of technical wackiness going on. That picture was flopping in and out. Oh, well, whatever. So big fish, big bait. If you want to go for them, that 5-inch paddle tail, you're going to get much higher numbers. Hopefully still some big fish. The big fish still eat the little one, the little bait. But you will catch smaller fish mixed in. A 16-inch fish will have, 14-inch fish will have no problem eating that 5-inch white paddle tail. So you're going to have to do a little culling through the little ones to get to the big ones. All right, go ahead and take me to the next one if you would, Zach. And this picture.
Sure thing. Actually, let me pause for a sec. Question on what you're talking about. What size jig were you using with that Boss BKD?
So we had one rigged with a 1-ounce head and one rigged with a 1.5-ounce head. When we were in 20 feet of water, the 1-ounce head was plenty. When the fish shifted deeper and we're in 30, 35, 40, the 1-ounce head became marginal. The 1.5 really became, what you wanted.
Cool. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for getting that up there fast, man. I love it.
Yep. Well, Right. So you ready for the next one then?
Please go ahead and slap it up there. And I think I said this one certainly. This one was from last season. This is an excellent example of why I should never take selfies. However, you can see just at the top on the left there the 5-inch white paddle tail again hanging out of the fish's mouth. The difference there is this one is skirted. It's skirted with chartreuse. Pick your favorite flavor. It's hard to say on any given day what's going to work best. But if I have a white tail, I like a chartreuse skirt. If I have a chartreuse tail, I like a white skirt. Sometimes pink does really well. And you can see in some of these shots on the wall behind me, we had a green chartreuse skirt going again today. We had a red and white. I can see him just, wait a minute, lean that way, lean this way, lean this way. Okay, you can see him on the wall behind me there. We got a chartreuse skirt and we had a red and white skirt. I like the skirted baits at this time of year. Some people put on skirts all the time. That's not me. I definitely find times when I don't want the skirt on there. I do better without it. But these fall fish, I like the skirts. I like the skirts a lot. And the next slide is going to show us why. Go ahead and take us to the next one if you would, Zach. So there's Lindsay. Oh no, we lost part of the picture. Shucks. Gosh darn it. Can we get the rest of the picture back?
I may have cropped it to fit. What were you looking for?
The fish on the bottom of that tandem rig.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. That's life. So I'll just start explaining it. This is a tandem rig. It's got a GI jig rain minnow on the bottom, so it's lead, right? So it's going to sink. And it's got a just a streamer type hook on the top. Now what happened was we were using the tandem rig with the lead jig to sink fast in deep water to catch sea bass. We were baiting up with squid on both hooks and fishing the tandems for sea bass, and we were successful. But when all of a sudden birds started going crazy and fish started boiling water 30 yards away, we kind of lost interest in the sea bass for a moment. We shifted gears and we went for the rockfish. Now Lindsay, she didn't switch rods. She just took that tandem rig, dropped it down, and immediately caught a double header. I promise you, people, there is a second fish on the bottom hook, which you can't see. It was a larger fish, and it illustrated what I wanted to talk about so well. Because, oh, there it is. Now we can see it there at the bottom. We got the bigger fish on the bottom on the lead. Thank you. Yes. Excellent technical wizardry, Zach. Thank you. But what's the thing is here is the smaller fish are generally up top. The bigger fish are generally down deep. And if you're in 20, 30 feet of water, there's every chance in the world they're going to be right on bottom. It's very, very likely. A lot of times, you're going to notice this. You're going to see a cloud of fish 5 feet down to 25 feet down, right? When you really get on them good. There's a cloud of fish there. And then all the way at the bottom in 30 feet, there's 2 or 3 big arches. That's what you want to catch, right? You want to get those big fish. You want to get down deep. Now, I'm going to go back to what I was saying before about the skirted jig. Why I like the skirted jig is I think it slows that fall as you're hopping it along a little bit. And you can put on an ounce and a half head. You can get a lot of weight on there. You can cast it out and you can hop it along the bottom. And it won't have that super duper fast sink of an ounce and a half head with just a straight tail, right? Because that's going to sink really fast. It slows that sink down and just gives it a really nice presentation. And that's a bait that I really, really like in this scenario when you got the working birds, but it's still kind of hard to find decent fish. Get that heavier head, match it up with a skirted jig. You'll have no problem feeling bottom. You'll have no problem keeping it down, but it'll get that nice slow sink after you give a nice quick jig. And that, I think, is really effective. It certainly has worked for us this fall. All right. If you would, Zach, please go ahead and take me to the next one. So here we have an interesting picture that I think helps to illustrate how different things are this fall. I was just leafing through my pictures of the late fall fishing. You can't really see any birds here, but trust me, there were birds all around. We were fishing birds right there. And look at how everyone's dressed. We are dressed for serious winter weather, gloves, the whole bit. I looked at the date this picture was taken. It was taken October 17. It was about 5 years ago. October 17. Now, October 17, I was like taking off my jacket in the middle of the day because it was so hot, right? Today, I took off my jacket because it was so warm. And it made me curious, does this have anything to do with why we're having these small schools behaving like they're behaving with the flocks of birds up and down so fast? It's just not like it was. So out of curiosity, I went and looked up the average water temperature at Thomas Point for November. Here's what I found. This is interesting. It gave an average of 56 degrees, a maximum of 61 degrees, and a minimum of 51 degrees. Now, today I was looking at 62.1 on my meter. I can't tell you it's accurate to the very degree, but it's, pretty accurate. That's above the maximum for November. Is this relative to the way the fish are acting, the way the birds are acting? I don't know. I can't answer that. I'm not a scientist. But it's certainly something to take into account. It seems like we're fishing October fish as much as we're fishing November fish right now. And you gotta respond. You gotta change your ways. This is one thing I've learned through the years. You can't just keep doing the same old thing. Even when conditions look somewhat similar, you got to change it up. You got to change it up. You got to do what the fish want. You can't fight Mother Nature. You got to go along with it. All right, go ahead and take us to the next one, Zach. I had a little fun doing some art. Do you like my art, Zach?
It's lovely.
Thank you.
Does Eric Packard like this art? That's the real question. I know he's watching.
Well, all I can tell you is I did my best. I apologize for the rudimentary nature. But what I want you to pretend is that black blobby thought bubble is actually a flock of birds. The wind is blowing out of the north. It's blowing into the flock. The birds are going to be flying into the wind, right? They're always flying into the wind, just like an airplane takes off, lands into the wind. Sure, they swoop and they swirl and they change around. But if you look at the flock, the bulk of the flock is going to be flying into the wind. So I see this. How am I going to approach? Next slide, please. The blue triangle is my boat, even though it looks nothing like my boat. I'm going to approach upwind of the flock of birds. Now, this is standard bird tactics, right? You always want to approach from the upwind side. And then that way, the wind pushes you over the fish. All right, go ahead and take me to the next slide, please. So I'm going to stop at my maximum casting distance from the outer perimeter of the action. I should have said I'm going to slow down to idle speed, 100 yards away, something like that. If you get much closer and you're going faster, you very well may scare the fish down. So I'm slowing down. I'm pulling up upwind, maximum casting range to the outer periphery of the action. I'm parking the boat, beam to the wind. Everybody's casting, right? Well, almost. Go ahead to the next slide, please, Zach. If I see that on my meter, I'm not casting. Now, somebody might fling a jig because they can't help it, but I'm not casting. A lot of people, they get up close to those birds, immediately they just start slinging. But folks, if you don't see these fish on the meter right now, rockfish, not bait, and this is just a big blob, it's just bait. We want arches. If I'm not seeing arches, all I'm seeing is the big blob. I am not coming out of gear. The schools of fish that are pushing up the bait, the quality fish, the rockfish, many of them are just too small. And you're only in one little section of where those fish have been feeding. And if you see that and you put it in a neutral, you might never go over any fish. All right, go ahead and take us to the next one if you would please, Zach. Instead, this is what I'm doing. I'm going around the flock and I'm watching my meter really closely for those arches. I want arches on the screen before I take the boat out of gear. Go ahead and take us to the next one, please, Zach. If I don't see fish on the meter, now I'm doing this. I'm making a wider circle, right? Without seeing the fish on the meter, I just don't even want to start casting ever. I'm continuing to search. This is difficult. This is tough. This is where one guy on the boat took a cast, even though you didn't say go ahead and cast. Another guy threw his line out behind the back of the boat and started to troll it, even though you're trying to maintain your maneuverability. Zach, seen that guy do that before. Another guy is like, please, 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 I see the birds. Come on, I see the birds. I see the birds. Can we please do it? All the while, by the way, I am looking for fish busting the surface. Now, this year, countless times, I've seen birds working, no fish busting. Maybe I see a swirl. Maybe I see 2 or 3 breaks, and then I don't see anything more. There's been plenty of occasions where you're just not seeing the fish breaking water like you used to. Doesn't mean they're not there, but it does mean if you don't see them on the meter, you should keep going. All right, Zach, go ahead and take us to the next one, please. Just a little illustration here. We have the current running the opposite direction of the wind. This could be happening at any given time, right? In this case, the bigger fish are probably getting squeezed. What's happening is the bigger fish, they're lazy. They don't want to go chase all those little fish, right? The small rockfish, they're hungry. They need to grow. They're chasing those bait fish. And a lot of them that they snap at, they're injuring, but the bait fish gets away. The bait fish sinks down. And the big fish gets to sit down there and be lazy and just pick it off, right? It's waiting for it to come to it. But of course, the current, the way the water's moving, the wind pushing at the surface, it's all having an effect. And there's every chance in the world that the fish you're looking for, they're not upwind of those birds. They're not downwind of those birds. They're either north or south or east or west, depending on which way this is all happening. As the bait gets squeezed in that direction, they're holding in that direction. Plus, at the same time, these fish are moving around. They're bobbing and weaving. They're chasing. The main school is chasing after the bait fish. So I just can't stress enough. Wait till you see them on the meter before you park that boat and start casting. All right. Woo! That was quite a diatribe. Zach, do we have any questions stacking up at this point?
We do have quite a few, and I think we should probably. So, are you done with this slide? Actually.
Yep.
All right. My friend Stan, I met Stan fishing on your boat. He asked a question early on. Does anyone know the earliest and latest time of the day the birds are active?
Well, if there's enough light to see, there's a chance the birds are going to be active. Now, that's not always the case. Sometimes they wait a little while when the sun comes up. It might take them an hour to get juiced up and going. Sometimes they quit an hour before the sun goes down. But as long as there's enough light to see them, you may well find them breaking water. I mean, it's entirely possible. Now, that said, what I've been seeing so far this November is a whole lot of action in the morning hours early, say from a half an hour after sunup to 3 hours after sunup. And then again in the 3:30, 4 o'clock range when you're just a couple hours from dusk. That I've been finding there are frenzies at that point. They seem shorter lived. They're not going on all that long, but it does happen. But that's just the way it's been. It could change tomorrow. Or maybe not.
So Ritz asked what conditions you're looking forward to find the birds. He hasn't been finding them. Another comment as well from Jim, and I'm going to bounce back and forth between these two. He says he's still waiting to see the birds come to the upper bay. Ritz confirmed that there as well.
So I want to say a couple things about that. The first thing is conditions-wise, there's really not much you can look for. The best thing you can do for yourself is get a pair of gyroscopically stabilized binoculars with at least 14 times magnification. I have the Fujinon 1440s. Regular marine binoculars magnify 7 times. Bare eye, you might spot birds at a mile and a quarter, maybe a mile and a half if you're young and you have eyes better than mine. But regular marine binoculars might see them at 2-3 miles on a calm day. On a rough day, it gets really hard to hold them steady enough to spot the birds much beyond a couple miles. With those Fujinon 14s, I can spot birds 5 to 7 miles, no problem, even when it's rough. And it's a curse and a blessing. You can see where they are from really far away, but these flocks have been up and down so fast. Sometimes you spot them 5 miles away. By the time you get there, they're done, and then you've basically wasted a half an hour of time running around. But what are you going to do? So that's the first thing. Second thing, skunked the last 2 trips. Don't feel bad about it. I've gotten more emails in the last couple of weeks, this fall, more emails from folks who are saying, I don't get it. I've read the reports and they're talking about people catching fish and I've been out and I'm not seeing squat. What's the deal? Well, if you look at Facebook, fishing's on fire all the time, right? If you look at the reports, very few people send us reports after they don't catch anything. We usually only hear from the people who do catch, which is a shame. I wish more people would send us reports. Hey, I was at, Love Point. They weren't there Saturday. I was over in Eastern Bay. We only got throwbacks. I wish I got more of those. But most people tend to send reports when they catch, they have a good catch. So don't feel bad. It's been going on a lot. There were I forget how many, dozens of boats fishing in the fish for 62 boats in the fish for a cure, and there just weren't a lot of fish caught. In fact, the heaviest fish that was weighed was 8.5 pounds. So it's just like, wow, really? But there were some boats that caught good numbers and some boats that caught absolutely nothing. Again, we're not seeing these huge flocks, acres and acres of birds. We're seeing these little pods, these little groups. Maybe they're the size of a house, and they're moving fast. So, you can make a long cruise. You could go from the Key Bridge to the Bay Bridge, and you may well not see a darn thing. It's not unique, so don't feel bad. Now, another thing I want to add to that is that I have not been hearing about huge numbers of flocks north of the bridge. I have had a couple reports outside of the Magathie and outside of the Patapsco of people running into birds and catching fish under them. But it hasn't been a lot of reports. I don't think it's been happening on a whole big bunch. One thing I would mention, if you're around the Key Bridge, I have been getting good reports from inside the Patapsco. The kayak guys have been doing pretty well. Fishing the structure, fishing the river mouth, fishing the Key Bridge. They've been catching some fish. So, there's something there. Not a whole lot of big ones, not a lot of big ones at all, actually. But my son David was fishing the Patapsco maybe a week ago, and he had good numbers, and he had a couple keepers. So, there is some action there. Zach, did I answer everything that was included in the other question that came up?
It was just more of a comment that he was still waiting for birds in the Upper Bay, indicating he hasn't really seen many up there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Luke actually chimed in, and he said he was in the same zone you were today, fished from the bridge to Sharps, and saw 2 pockets of birds. Does that kind of match up with what you experienced today?
Exactly. Actually, I encountered 2 pockets, one of which was a complete bust. It was about maybe 2 miles to our south when I spotted it, and by the time we got there, it was done. We caught 1 16-inch fish in it, and then I couldn't relocate the fish. Pretty much everything I caught was at the pocket near Poplar, right off the southern tip of Poplar. Luke, we probably passed each other today. I didn't make it as far south as Sharps. On Saturday we went down that way, but we didn't find them down there. Now on Saturday we also found them dead south of Poplar, closer to Tillman Island. They were in like 20 feet of water. In fact, the big fish wasn't it in 20 feet of water, 22 feet.
That sounds right.
Yeah, it was in shallow. That pocket of birds was much farther in. Heading down there and heading back, I put the binoculars on Eastern Bay. Didn't see a thing. I have heard of some birds in Eastern Bay, but I didn't see them. There's just a lot fewer, smaller, bunches.
Speaking of, Eric Gray says he saw you heading out today and had good luck in Eastern Bay in front of the boats.
Oh, very good. Okay.
He also has a follow-up question. How many seconds do you let the paddle tail drop?
Till it hits bottom. I'm absolutely fishing bottom right now, because if you go up to the birds and you throw up top, you're very likely going to catch a 14 to 16-inch fish, maybe an 18. You might get a 20, you might get a 22. But most of the bigger fish, they're down. They're down deep. They're going to be below the main school of fish. They're probably going to be on bottom. I have been finding that when I get out into really deep water, because Saturday we encountered birds in really deep water, 40, 45 feet of water. Out there, the fish are not dead on bottom, and we just didn't catch them. That's the second or third time that's happened to me. I found what looks like a great flock of birds. They've been in 40 to 50 feet of water, and maybe catch a couple little fish in them, but nothing good. At that point, it's really too deep with the same stuff you're throwing in 30 feet of water to effectively fish bottom. And I'm not saying that I didn't see the marks on bottom either. So then you're trying to suspend, 30, 35 feet down. So you're still in the fish, but you're below the main body of the fish. That becomes difficult, especially in a strong wind or current. For me, it hasn't been panning out. Eric, do me a favor. When we go into the next question, if you would chime in and just let us know, did you find them under birds? I'm curious if you found fish and caught them, or if you found fish under birds and got into them. Particularly because both times I went by, I didn't see any birds. I put the binocs out there, but I just didn't see them. So I'm curious if maybe my timing wasn't right, or I don't know if you were way up Eastern Bay, but I'm curious if they were on birds or on structure. Oh, let me add one thing real quick before we go to the next one, Zach. Eric, how many seconds am I letting the paddle tail drop? And I said hitting bottom. That's absolutely true. By the way, I'm also counting down. Today it was 12 seconds in 30 feet of water to hit bottom. And the reason I'm doing that is because you might get hit on the way down and jig. You might forget to count and just start snapping it, forget to wait, whatever. If I just constantly count in my head every time, I kind of know when to expect it to hit bottom. And I just find I'm more diligent about bouncing along the bottom. I'm keeping it down there, by the way. Every time I snap the rod tip, I'm waiting for it to hit bottom again before I'm coming back up, until I get really close to the boat. Unless I see a ton of suspended fish that I really like and I really want to target, really good marks on the meter. But generally speaking, that's what I'm doing.
Cool. So Tommy has asked a question about gear. What size reel and line do you like to use? And do you tie directly to the jig or are you using a leader? And this guy, Tommy's a serious angler. I follow this guy. Yeah.
Here's what I like to use, which is light. By all measures, it's light. I like the Shimano Stratic. Is that a 2500 or a 3500? I think it's a 2500. But I'm just going to double check because I cannot remember stuff like I used to. It is in fact a 2500. This is an older one. That's why it's white. This is a really old one. But that's what is on the wall behind me there is just newer ones. Stratic 2500, spooled with 17-pound Power Pro. It's little for rockfish, but it's what I really like. And the truth is you can catch a 40-inch fish on this. It's as long as you're not in stupid deep water that you can't stop it. With that 17-pound braid, it's highly effective. On the other end here, I've got a uni to uni going to 25-pound fluoro, and I use the 25-pound fluoro leader. Now, anybody who's been fishing for a long time and might have heard me talk at a seminar or read something I wrote, I used to tie direct. I tie direct all the time. The fish don't care. They don't care one bit. This braid doesn't bother them. Tying direct will not get less hits. When I changed my ways and started adding the leader was when I did a abrasion test with braid and with fluoro. And the braid absolutely positively has much less abrasion resistance. Now with rockfish, it usually doesn't matter a whole big bunch, but you bounce that jig across an oyster bar one time, you're going to nick the braid. You got the fluoro on the end. It's not nearly as big a deal. Your line rubs against the boat, you're going to abrade it. The rockfish do have sandpapery teeth. After a while, they're going to start to abrade it a little bit. And man, I forget the exact numbers on the abrasion test, but it was along the lines of with the 17-pound test, like 20% abrasion resist, 20% better abrasion resistance with the fluoro, 25%. It was significant. It was noticeable. And if you tie direct, you will find that after a while, you've had the same knot there for a while. You go to set a hook and pop, it just pops right off. Well, that's going to happen no matter what you're using once in a while. But if you've got that fluoro there on the end, it happens a lot less.
Lenny, I can speak from my personal experience. There is an advantage of using the fluoro for handling the line. You don't want to grab that wet braid if you have, you're lifting a dink up over the gunnel, right?
That is absolutely true. It's easy, much easier on the hands to have, the fluoro as opposed to the braid. And I've talked to other guys, good anglers, who say they put the fluorocarbon on there purely for that reason. Like that's why they do it. Um, I never worried about it much until I did that abrasion test and was like, whoa, that's significant. I got to start putting the fluoro on the end. I never wanted to have the extra knot. I don't like tying the uni to uni. I got to put on my glasses or I can't see the stuff. It's kind of a pain in the butt. And then on top of that, you got another nut. You got another potential failure point, right? Knots weaken the line. But I changed my ways on that one.
Gotcha. We got lots more gear questions, but before we, dive back into there, since Eric chimed back in about the birds in Eastern Bay. He said he caught them not under, but surrounding them, and got a 20, and same when he was by the way. Now he's referring to the freighters, the cargo ships, I believe, by the boats. I would guess.
Okay, and there have been birds popping up and down near those freighters. I haven't gone and fished them. I've seen them through the binoculars and not hit them. I was getting reports they were all small fish, but Eric, I think you found the big ones. So good on you. You found some good ones. Man, there's so many ships parked out there these days. I don't know which one you pick.
All right. Charlene, sorry.
No, I just wanted to thank Eric for coming back with that.
Yeah.
And sharing that with us.
And he says, thank you for answering his questions. So I have a question from, I'm not sure if this is Charlene or John Connolly, but is there a rule of thumb for jig weight and water depth?
Well, kind of, sort of, but not really, because what happens is on a dead calm day, I mean, shoot, you might be able to tink bottom in 30 feet with a half an ounce, right? If it's just dead calm, no current. You put some wind into the mix, you put some current into the mix. It depends on your boat, how quickly does your boat drift. That adds in too. How much is the wind blowing your line? It all plays in and it changes. Now, having said that, as just a very basic general rule of thumb, I'm reaching for a quarter ounce. If I don't want that thing to sink, I'm casting right up to the shoreline to riprap, something like that. Half an ounce water, 5, 6, 7 feet of water. Half an ounce is good. If I'm trying to hit bottom in 12 feet of water and feel it, and I want to know what's going on, half an ounce might do it. I might be going to 3/4. 20 feet of water, I'm probably going to an ounce at that point, unless it's really calm out. 25, 30, you can still work it with an ounce most of the time, not always. Particularly really windy days, it gets really tough. You got to juice it up to an ounce and a half. I try not to go to 2 ounces because, frankly, at that point, the head and the hook become so darn big that they almost mismatch the tail. But sometimes you got to do that. Sometimes you might have to upsize your bait a little bit to make it match up a little bit. But if you're in 30, 35 feet of water and the wind is honking, it can get really tough. Saturday, the wind was really honking. Down to 32, 3, 4 feet of water, we were okay with an ounce and a half. We really were. I think we were just fine. But when 2 comes into play, when you're like at the power plant and you're in that roaring current, you might have trouble feeling bottom with any less. It depends. It all depends. But those are kind of, I hope that gives a kind of a basic outline.
Speaking of Saturday, we were fishing with Eric on Saturday. He was having a lot of success catching on a vertical jig, but also catching on the 1 ounce jig with plastic. Which do you recommend or prefer?
Hi, Eric. I prefer the plastic. I do. And you did go to the spoon and you were catching on it. But you may have noticed I did not go to the spoon. I find that often, not always, often, I do better if I cast away from the boat and then give that bounce over the bottom horizontal presentation, as opposed to a straight vertical presentation, which is pretty much what you get with a spoon. It was windy on Saturday. It wasn't completely vertical, but mostly. Not always true. Not always true. And you, as I recall, I think you caught quite a few fish on that little spoon. But it does force you to kind of give that vertical presentation. A lot of times I like the jig going horizontal, bouncing along the bottom. I will say that in the past, there were times when I favored that vertical presentation in the spoon, and I stuck with it quite a bit. 8-10 years ago, I did that a lot more. I shifted away from it. I'm not saying it's not a good thing to try. It absolutely is. But I think it goes both ways. There are probably times when that vertical presentation works, just as well or better. But I like that jig bouncing along the bottom. I don't know. I feel like that generates hits a lot of times when nothing else will.
Cool. I have a question from David Hall. Once the birds are gone, do you leave the area immediately or stick around and jig a little longer?
Well, it's a judgment call. And sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. No solid answer for you. I certainly will work the area with the fish finder for at least 15, 20 minutes, a half an hour, just meandering around. Because, if the birds were working there was action there are fish around, somewhere around you. You might be able to spot them on the meter. If you can just work the general zone, try and work into the wind when you can. And then if you go over something good, you can keep the boat in gear until it just disappears and then shift into neutral and cast back and blow back towards it. I don't think there's really a good solid answer to when do you leave. You just got to work it for a little bit, and if you're not seeing it at some point, you got to decide. Right now, this particular fall, I'll say this: I'm sticking around and looking a lot longer than I would have in the past, and it's purely because there have been, it's been so sparse trying to find these fish and find these birds. They've been so few and far between the schools that this year I'm more inclined to kind of stick around to where the action was as opposed to going running. In fact, today and I think Saturday too, you stop me if I'm wrong, Zach, but I wasn't hitting the throttles until I had other birds in the binoculars.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Question from Jonathan Tibbs. What's your suggestion on the best time to fish relative to the tide, incoming or outgoing?
Well, Jonathan, there are a lot of different answers to that question depending on how you're fishing and what the fish have been doing. In the springtime, if you're fishing bait, it's critical to be on that last hour of one tide into the half an hour of the next tide. These fish this fall, working the flocks, I really think tide has a lot less to do with it. They tend to feed through longer periods of the day at this time of year. Now, when you get a completely dead tide, are they likely to stop feeding for a while? Yeah, they probably will. Although not necessarily. Sometimes in the fall, they just keep right on going, right through the change of tide. At this time of year, fishing in this way, I'm honestly not worried about it all that much. I'm checking the tide charts still before I go, purely so I can decide whether or not I want to hit some shallower structure-oriented areas, particularly at daybreak and sunset with topwater. I will still look at the tide charts. But as far as the birds go and working these fish, I'm not paying a whole heck of a lot of mind to it.
Well, since we're on Jonathan, he has another question as well. Is it a waste of time to troll over fish that are tight to bottom and not suspended midway in the water column? He never seems to hook up trolling when the bulk of fish are on bottom below 30 feet.
Well, is it a waste of time? No, it's never a waste of time. Because you never know what the heck is going to work. All right, so it's never a waste of time. Would I spend a whole bunch of time doing it? I don't troll a whole bunch, but the charters all do. And I can tell you right now, they're all trolling through all this, and I guarantee you they got some baits that are down near the bottom. And I don't know if they're catching those fish or not. but we've been seeing the trollers around us catching some fish. And, I wonder immediately, what are you trolling? What depth is it running at? If they're on bottom below 30 feet and you're in 35 feet of water, have you been trolling in 25 feet of water and now you've transitioned into 30, 35 feet of water? Are you going to catch a fish on bottom? I don't think so, regardless, because whatever you're towing isn't 32, 33 feet down there near the bottom, near the fish. Interesting experiment for you. Here's one thing I would try. If your lures, if you're running them at 20, 25 feet and you go through a deep area and see them on bottom, I would shift into neutral for a minute. Wait till one of your lures hits the bottom. Watch your rod tips. Wait till something hits the bottom, then go back into gear. Try that a couple times. See if it makes a difference. I'm not a great troller, but I have fished with great trollers. And the really good trollers know exactly where their lures are in the water column. And if they see fish at a different depth, they will change that with the throttles. They'll slow down, they'll shift into neutral, they'll go back into gear, they'll speed up if the fish are higher. They know how to vary those lures using the boat to put them right in front of those fish. And I've been with guys where you literally look at a little patch of fish on the meter and they go, oh man, okay, they're 10 feet down below my lures. And they go into neutral and then they pick it back up, and I'll be darned if they don't hook the fish. Ones you just drove over on the meter. So hope that helps.
All right. Speaking of trolling, we have a question. Well, actually, Tom just had a nice comment earlier. It was just about, he said it was a nice tactic. He liked your tactic about the circling concentric circles and moving out. But Matthew asked if you can use a trolling motor with spot lock in the scenarios that you presented.
Yeah, saw a guy doing it today. Actually, when he got on top of the fish, he was dropping down the motor. The downside is, once you deploy the motor, you're kind of stuck until you pull it, which isn't a big deal, right? But I would call it a slight deterrent. So people may stick in the same spot a little too long. Of course, there are going to be some scenarios also where you can pour on the coals on that electric and pull yourself right back up to the fish. So yeah, absolutely, it can be effective. I'm still ripping my hair out. I don't have one on my boat. It came in February. I'm still waiting for another part. Actually, the part arrived. Now I have to go get it. And next spring, I'll probably be doing it myself. Yeah, you absolutely can.
Just a reminder, everyone, if you ask a question, you get put into the drawing for the new Wayne Young book. If you just made a comment, you're not necessarily asking a question. You won't go into the drawing. So keep those questions coming. But we only have about 10 minutes or so. But got a few more questions here for you, Lenny.
Zach, someone is going to ask, why do I have to ask a question? And then you got to put their name in the hat. It's got to happen.
You must ask a relevant fishing question pertaining to this fish talk. All right. So Outdoors in Maryland asked, how is the shallow bite with the cold front coming in tonight? Is that going to mess things up?
I think it's already messed up. Ever since the crazy tides, was it 2 weeks ago now? Ever since the crazy tides that came with the crazy storm, I have not done well in the shallows. I haven't done squat in the shallows. Saturday, before we fished the birds, we were at the rocks at Poplar at, the first crack of dawn, throwing 2 topwaters and 2 jigs. And it should have been great. We had 1 swirl on topwater. That was it. My shallow water spots on the west side, ever since that crazy tide, have been deader than a doornail. Nothing. In fact, my intermediary depth hotspots on the west side, 7, 8, 10 feet of water, which were good prior to, absolutely deader than a doornail. Nothing there. Thomas Point Shoal, we were catching tons of fish on. Holy mackerel, September, October, and then all of a sudden, poof. And I didn't go there today. We didn't go there Saturday. So I haven't been there in a week. But certainly for the week following that storm, deader than a doornail. So, I don't think the cold front coming in can do a whole lot more than that already did. I'm sure in some other areas, that's not the case, but that's been the case around here. I can't say I've talked to anybody who's really enjoyed good shallow water fishing in the last week or two. Someone chime in if you're in a different area where it's been happening.
Yeah, the Dom asked, so the top water bite worth a try? Probably too cold. Yeah.
Well, so again, is it worth a try? Yes. If I was going out at daybreak tomorrow, would I swing by a spot or two on the way and try topwater? Yes. We intended on trying it today. We actually, the guys who came down hit some traffic, and we weren't out at daybreak. We were a little bit late, so we didn't even try. It was really past topwater time by the time we got out into the areas where the fish are. But is it worth a try this weekend? Oh, heck yeah. Is it too cold? Oh, heck no. I can remember some seasons when I caught fish in the shallows. I'm talking a foot or two of water in December when, we were all shivering and gloved up and the whole bit. Now, that's not, normal or common. But, I saw 62 degrees on the meter today, 62.5. Will fish hit top water? Oh God, yes. I'm willing to throw top water until it hits 45. Now, when it hits 50, it starts to get sketchy. But yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, Kenny said he heard some top water success reports. Brandon Stoner said the Tangier Sound has some good shallow water as well. Yeah.
And the Sound probably has another degree or two on us around here in the middle zone.
Cool. Getting a lot of questions on reports, Lenny. I don't think we're going to be able to hit them all in the time frame, but I guess I just want to remind everybody who's asking about reports and intels. He shares everything he knows. So, tomorrow morning, if by noon, check fishtalkbag.com for fishing reports. We got some questions from the Bay Bridge all the way down to Norfolk. So we have our regional reports that Lenny will collate and put up online tomorrow. So
Yeah.
Sorry we can't answer all these questions about reports, but every intel we have will be online tomorrow.
Yeah, I really do put it all in there, folks. I don't hold back. I really don't. And the Middle Bay, if you read the Middle Bay report, I'll put in there exactly what I experienced. And as I've said to you, exactly what I experienced today, last weekend, the weekend before. The other, the areas I'm not fishing, Molly is calling tackle shops. We got charter boat captains chiming in. We got readers chiming in. We try and get some form of verification, almost everything, either a picture verification, or when it's multiple readers, I'll put multiple readers said, so it's kind of a verified report. It's coming from multiple people. Occasionally I'll throw in there unverified if I get something from someone I don't know at all, and there's no picture, and they just say, oh, it was a red hot bite. If it's a little sketchy, I'll mention it, but it does all go in there.
Awesome. How about eels, Lenny? Heard any reports on anyone?
Well, I've heard some reports of people catching fish on eels, but it's probably not what you want to hear about. So we've had multiple reader reports, including photographic evidence of guys who've been eeling up near pools looking for rockfish, catching some big old, or looking for rockfish, catching some big old catfish. So, I mean, big catfish. I'm talking 30-inch plus catfish. Evidently, big catfish will eat eels. So, it's news to me. Never heard of it till this year. But that's happening up north. Farther south from that, I really haven't. I had eels on the boat one Saturday. I never deployed one. Never felt like we saw the right thing on the meter and the right thing was going on and it was the right situation. Just never quite felt right. Never deployed one. But eels are really good for big fish. Talking at least 26 inches, more likely 28 and up. They have a hard time turning down an eel. And, I haven't heard more beyond that, but there's nothing wrong with throwing some eels on the boat and trying them out. Particularly if you spot fish on structure. That's where I really like eels. I really like, if I've got a big lump and I'm seeing marks right on that lump and those fish are holding on that lump. I'm not like chasing birds, but I see them on structure. Eels can be a really effective way of picking them off. Cut eels are a great blue cat bait. Interesting. Thank you, Dom. Well, that's interesting. That's a new one to me. I didn't know it.
And then
8 over 30. Holy cow. That's some seriously good catfishing. Matt, well, I want to ask Matt, did he get any rockfish or was it all cats?
we'll give him a minute to answer that, and we'll circle back. Had a couple questions, another from Tommy Tablata and also Herb Floyd. Do you like to use any scents on your baits?
I don't. I do keep gulp on my boat at all times. And when I have a really ginger bite going on, that's when I throw on the gulp. Gulp is expensive, so I don't normally like to buy a whole ton of it, but I always keep it aboard. What I think it does for you, all the scents, they're all a little different, but gulp is certainly very scented. I don't think they get you more bites. I think the fish swims up and grabs it because it sees something. And I've tried fishing them side by side. I really don't think you get more bites, but big but when the fish put their mouth around it, they don't want to let go. And just your straight little plastic jig, you might have a second to set the hook. You're not going to get a whole lot more than that very often. With a scented bait, often it's several seconds. I've had fish literally eat gulp laying on the bottom, gulp jerk shad. I was in the little chop tank many years ago, and I got a tangle in my reel. And so I'm trying to straighten out the tangle, and it's just laying on the bottom. And a horse croaker came by and just ate the darn thing. They definitely like to hold on longer, so you get an advantage there. Now, I did use a lot more of this type of thing in years past. I had a bunch of kids. I took my kids fishing all the time, and I discovered that things like Spike It were very dangerous to have on the boat, because the next thing you knew, your entire boat would smell like garlic and you would have pink on your seats. So I moved away from it. But there is a value to having it. And again, it's one of those days when the fish are biting really gingerly. If I have 5 hits and I can't seem to set a hook, and they're really light hits, and I'm like, dang, what am I going to do? That's when I'll throw on the gulp.
Gotcha. I'm always slapping on some Procure or some other kind of scents, and I mean, typically you're always out fishing me. Let's face it. there was a day this past spring that I was distinctly getting more bites on the Procure on a bucktail. I like to use the bucktail because the hairs kind of hold it rather than it kind of rinses off after a few casts on the plastic. But that day, they were kind of going for that bucktail loaded up with the Menhaden Procure.
I know the day you're talking about, right? At the jetty?
That's right.
Yes, I did. Yeah, you're absolutely right. That was the killer bait that day. That thing outperformed everything else.
I was using a perch pounder or whatever they're called now, Captain Burt's, with the tiniest little gulp that they make. It's like an inch long, and I put that on the perch pounder, and I was catching perch left and right over on Weems Creek. And when I pulled a perch in, and it wouldn't let go in my kayak. It wouldn't let go of the gulp. So I think you're absolutely right. I think they latch on a little bit longer. You get more opportunity. We had a question about gear. A couple questions that kind of talk about, the season. One guy, Brandon, asked, when you call the season, is it, let's see, what did he say? Was it, when do you call it quits for the season?
Oh.
Is it water temp or end of the season?
That's when I stopped catching fish.
Maryland's what, 15th of December? Is that?
Yeah, I'll generally go right to the end. But if the reports are totally horrible and I go on 2 or 3 trips in a row and I don't catch squat, I might think about shifting. Now, I'm not quitting because what's going to happen. What's going to happen, Zach? What am I going to do next?
Well, you're probably going to go pickerel fishing.
Correct.
and And if anything, if we get any hard water, you're probably going to be drilling holes.
Correct.
We had a pretty mild winter last year. This one might be a little different. So
Fishing season in the awesome state of Maryland never ends. It just changes.
okay, we had a couple questions about pickerel lures and yellow perch but that's like kind of another talk. Do you want to go into the other species or?
What time? How are we doing on time?
It's 6 p.m.
Oh my.
Quite a lot of people tuned in, so it's up to you.
I'll tell you what. Why don't you pick your best 2 questions coming up, and then on the next episode, we'll try and focus on what some of the things we miss are. If folks want to hear about the perch, we'll focus on that. If we get more on the pickerel, we'll focus on that. Whatever. Pick 2 more. 2 more.
Right.
We'll go a little over time.
All right. I think that those are for the next talk when we talk about winter fishing opportunities. And but for people who are wrapping up, who aren't completely insane and gonna fish, what's your what is your I've determined after years of pickerel fishing, Letty and I participate in a heated competition for the CCA pickerel tournament. I've set a benchmark for myself about how cold it's going to be before I go out and load up my truck. I'm going to ask you first what yours is, and then I'll tell you mine.
How cold it's going to be? Temperature-wise? Like, when am I going to start?
No, like what's going to get your truck started and your trailer hitched onto there and hit the road to one of your pickle spots. Do you just go whenever? Okay, I'll start. 40 degrees. If it's colder than 40 degrees, I'm not going, because I realize anything 40 degrees, about 2 hours on the lake, and my feet are icicles, and I'm just miserable. So 40 degrees, I can be comfortable.
That's bottom line barrier.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, I don't have that.
Okay. The one year you and I went down to Salisbury and we fished Shoemaker Pond, and it was so cold my steering cables froze and snapped. So I didn't have a rubber. I had to sort of paddle steer. So anyway, it's a lot of fun. If you guys haven't signed up for the CCA pickerel tournament, it's a great fun tournament to motivate you to fish through the winter months, and it's just a fun tournament. It's not overly competitive. It's just a fun, friendly, some good camaraderie. I've met a lot of great anglers specifically because I participated in this tournament, and it's really great. And it gives you CCA membership, which gives you a lot of you get a cool magazine, Tide magazine every year, I think.
And the prizes are fantastic.
They just started the custom metalworks. New pickerel trophies are super cool.
Super cool.
And I've got a ton of Engel coolers. I've got fishing rods. I've won Costa sunglasses. So tons of great prizes, and it's only like $50 standard. I think 75 if you're not a member yet. But
and it runs through February, right? December, January, February.
You got four months to fish, and fish is.
Yeah, they added November. I'm not fishing November. I'm on strike. There's just too much other stuff going on.
I hear you.
But December, I'll jump in. And I thought of a bottom line. You know what it is? You know what my bottom line is? If the water got hard enough that I will break my trailer lights if I attempt to launch my boat.
Okay.
At that point, I will no longer attempt to pickerel fish.
Fair enough. We said we're going to do 2 more questions, and thank you so much, everybody, for your participation. I'm overwhelmed with these. How many questions? All right. Okay, so here it is. So if you are finishing up, if you want to call it quits and wait till it gets warm out, that's fine. So Luke's pulling his boat in 3 weeks, and he has advice for gear storage. Do you cut off the line? Do you tie fresh leaders? Do you wait for spring? Do you lube your reels?
Yes. So the first 10-15 feet of line on every reel should be cut away and thrown away a couple times a season, because what happens is that's the portion of the line that takes all the chafe. That's what rubs against the bottom of the boat when the fish goes that way, and you don't get the tip down quick enough. That's what drags against the bottom. So first at least 10 feet of line, chop it, get rid of it. Leaders, oh my God, yes. You can't hold a leader. Monofilament does not stand the test of time. It really doesn't. If you leave it on there all winter and then cast it again in the spring, honestly, don't do that. It will not be nearly as strong. Lubing the reels, absolutely. They should be lubed and cleaned at least twice a year. Trying to think of what other critical stuff, really, I think, do we have an article at fishtalkmag.com that goes into the yearly gear maintenance? I think we do. I think we
Probably
did that
do.
a couple of years ago.
I forgot to mention. Wait, that's not it. Wait, is that it? Live. Nope, that's an old one. Never mind.
That is old.
I don't know. I thought I put up there. We actually do have some. I thought I loaded that up. We have some articles actually on targeting birds on fishtalkmag.com. Just go to fishtalkmag.com, type birds in the top search box, and there actually is an article that kind of recaps everything Lenny, talked about tonight.
Yeah, I get a lot of questions from readers on a regular basis about specific topics that are on fishtalkmag.com and that they didn't realize were there. And I always say the same thing. If you're interested in a specific topic, fishing under birds, fishing topwater, whatever, just go to fishtalkmag.com, and in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, it just says search. There's a little search box. Just plug in whatever you want to know about right there, and it'll pull up all the articles we've ever done in the magazine that relate to it. And you can find an awful lot in there. It's good for spots too. If you go in there and type in Potomac River, you'll get several specific articles on the Potomac River.
Yep. So I just typed in maintenance, and we have an article on gear maintenance, rigs and leaders, rods and reels. There's another 5 tips, 5 tackle disasters to not do. So yeah, like Lenny said. And if you're on mobile, the search bar is right across the top as well.
That's a good one. 5 tackle disasters. I remember that one.
All right. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. Dave Sikorsky has this really cool wheel, so I thought we'd try the wheel. What do you say?
I love it.
And the winner of the Wayne Young book is Ritz Virgie. Awesome.
Very nice. Congrats, Ritz.
Look at that. Confetti. Very exciting. All right. So Lenny, we doing the December, is it the first Thursday or second Thursday?
So we could really do either, honestly. I had thought, starting 2022, we'd make it the first Thursday. The truth, people, is we only made it the second Thursday of the month because we had a scheduling conflict initially with the first Live with Lenny. So should we just change it to the first of every month right now, Zach? Should we just do December? It's going to be the first Thursday.
In my head, it's always the first Thursday anyway. Granted,
okay, that's
like
it.
A deadline or something. I'm not even looking at the calendar.
Henceforth and forevermore, it shall be the first Thursday at 5 o'clock. The first Thursday of every month at 5 o'clock, including in December, Thursday the 2nd.
That sounds great.
It is written in stone.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. It was an awesome. I had a great time. I hope you did too. And yeah, we'll see you on the first Thursday of December.
Thanks. Thank you, Zach. And thanks everyone for tuning in.
All right. See ya.